I'm Leon Todd for G66. Welcome to another Tuesday Tone Tip. On today's video, I want to go through a preset that I've put together on the Axe FX3 based around models of rare and expensive guitar gear. And we're going to start with one of the rarest and most expensive amplifiers ever, the Dumbles Overdrive Special. And while we're going for it, let's use a pair of them in here on the Axe FX3. I've got the ODS 100 Clean dialed up at the moment. I like that you can crank up the gain, mid-range, and treble on this one. I like to back off a little bit of bass. Depending on your guitar, you might want to take that one all the way down to 0. Certainly if you're playing with humbuckers, that might sound good. I've got a Strat with single coils at the moment, so I'm running it at 3. I've paired this up with a set of these Rumble EV12L Dynacabs in here. We've got a dynamic on one side, a ribbon on the other in a stereo setup. I love the way this sounds on the neck and middle pickup of this Strat. And of course, slamming it onto the bridge pickup, you can get a lovely little crunch out of it. It responds well to pedals in front of it, as we're about to hear. And it's just dynamic, responsive, and it makes you want to play guitar better, in my opinion. So having a model of an amplifier that will probably sell for well over $100,000 in the real world, being able to use 2 of them, is quite a nice advantage of using Fractal gear. The reverb that I've chosen here is the London Plate, which I believe is based on the real plate reverb that is installed at Abbey Road Studios. So this whole setup at the moment is like taking 2 Dumbles, putting them in Abbey Road Studio with a beautiful cab, dual miking it, chucking on some of that in-house plate reverb. I mean, I could just play this preset as is without anything else, but I want to go through a couple of the effects that I've chosen in here. Again, focusing on that rare or valuable angle on here. The first one is the Paragon Wah. This is based on the Tycobra Parapedal, which is a really interesting, unique wah design, probably most famously used by Tony Iommi. This one has a really vocal, dramatic swell to it. Excuse my squeaky chair, but this is what we get with this when I kick it in. That's a really unique vocal sounding wah, and we'll hear that across some of the other scenes that I've dialed in here. Let's go to the drive block, because there's only one choice for this, right? It has to be the Clone Chiron based on the Klon Centaur. The original Centaurs now sell upwards for over $5,000 US. They're no longer made, but sometimes very small batches are made. This is great for getting a cranked amp sound out of a clean amp platform. To me, I like the Klon circuit because it gives you more of what you already like about your tone without compromising the bottom line of it. So let's just hear it on the bridge pickup, then we'll hear it with the neck pickup. I'll probably kick in a bit of that Paragon Wah as well. I think I like those clean boost settings. We'll live with that. And again, hear it in combination with some of these other scenes. Next, let's go to the filter block. And I've set this one up to emulate the Touchwire sound that you hear on the U2 song Mysterious Ways. That has become a cult guitar sound, and the processor that it was made with, the old Korg A3000, has now rocketed up in value because basically there's an expansion card for it, and that sound on Mysterious Ways was just a preset on there. If you use these settings, it gets really close to that iconic Mysterious Ways sound. So we're using the mix mode on the Touchwire. I've just decreased the sensitivity a bit with this guitar. I'm sure it would help if I actually knew how to play that song as well. But let's move along because we just heard that Touchwire in combination with the Clean Boost Klon. And this flanger, this is a factory type called the Lofty Flange. And reading between the lines and what I know about vintage flanges and particular prog rock trios, I'm going to say this one is based on the old rack-mount loft flanger that Alex Lifeson used in the mid to late 80s in his rig. This at the stock settings I think is a beautiful flange tone, and the originals are really hard to find. I personally like to collect old rack gear, and I really love Rush, so anything associated with Alex's tones I try to track down, but I have not been able to find a loft flanger. Having that tone in here is pretty awesome though. One thing to note is that the phase reverse is set to both in here. So this is doing something really interesting to the stereo image. That's why I've got 2 amps in here. And make sure you're listening in stereo to this one. And you know, obviously I have to play this chord, right? While we're talking about modulation effects, there is nothing that has become more mythical and desirable in the land of rack mount chorus effects recently as the old Diatronix CS5 tri-chorus. Fulltone make a clone of this. I think the Fulltone starting price is well over $1,500 US, and then use one sell for a couple of grand. The original Diatronix CS5, again, really hard to find, really valuable. We've got a model of it in here, the stereo tri-chorus. I like setting all the depths somewhere around 60 or 70% and just kind of offsetting them a little bit. I've got the rate here a little bit lower than 1 Hertz. Cranking up to about 2 Hertz can give you a really cool rotary style sound on here, but you know, for those kind of 80s style cleans, this is really beautiful. And as we heard on there, that is so pristine and sparkly with the Rock Guy compressor. This one is based on the old Rockman guitar compressor, another unit that has become desirable and harder to find used these days. But luckily with all of this, it's just included in the Axe-Fx. You can have all this fun without having to go on that search and spend all that extra money. Let's stay in the rack mount world now, and we'll use the 2290 with modulation as a delay after the cab, kind of studio style. I have used a couple of the advanced features in here, namely the ducker. I've set up 15 decibels of attenuation. There is no modulation on the first two LFOs, so there's no time modulation, but I'm using the third LFO to control the echo pan. So I've got ducking and panning and the signature phase reverse sound of the 2290 on there. I recently read an old music price guide, I want to say from 1992, and if you adjust the price of a rack mount 2290, which just did delay and some switching stuff from 1992, it's more expensive than the list price of an Axe-Fx these days, which I think is kind of stunning because I've compared my real 2290 and the 2290 in this, and it is bang on with some gain and these ODS cleans as a starting point. You get a beautiful greasy lead sound. Next up, let's use the crystal echoes in the pitch block to emulate the iconic Eventide H3000 crystals preset. I mean, this is just so gorgeous and lush, especially if you love those kind of ambient clean tones. Something like this. Beautiful. And I will also add that this is just a small fraction of all the amazing things you can do in the box with a Fractal product. I've talked about models of rare, valuable, famous, and infamous gear. I'm going to play you all out with some sounds that you can only find in a Fractal, namely the Plex Verb. I think the Plex delay and the multi-delay are two of the most creative and inspiring blocks in any Fractal unit. And we're going to use the Ursa Major reverb, which is an 18-second pitched reverb on here. We'll just hear the sound of the Plex Verb to start out with, then I'll add the shimmer from the Ursa Major. If you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comment section below what are some of your favorite rare and valuable models that are available inside the Axe-Fx FM9 and FM3. If you've got questions or suggestions for future videos in this series, let me know in the comment section below. I'll play you all out with the Plex Verb and then some Ursa Major Verb on here. Have a great week. I will see you all on the next one.